Hey, everybody, this is episode 1 of Far From the Tree, podcast where you can learn, laugh, and even cry with your host, us, mother and daughter duo, Jamie Dawn and Tatiana Maisel. Jamie's an ICF leadership coach and astrologer, and Tatiana's a resident therapist dedicated to be of service to others through their gifts and life experiences. So get comfy and share the sacred space with us. Who knows what fruit may fall in your lap as you tune in to Far From the Tree. Here in our first episode, we are going to tackle the subject of mental health and mindset. What are they? Why are they important in our human experience? What is the difference between them and how can we work with them? And maybe even more. So, welcome, Tatiana. I'm here with you, and I'm so happy to be here.
Hello, hello.
What's our weather report today? How are you feeling? What's the mood?
My mood kind of matches the weather in Richmond today.
Which
A little
is,
rainy, kind of warm,
oh,
but kind of like eh.
okay. That says something. Give me a word to encompass it. Is meh it?
mm. Blah is pretty good.
Blah's good.
Not bad, not good, just blah.
Hmm.
Just there.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. I understand. Maybe this will cheer
Mhm.
you up.
Thank you.
I love these little studio effects that Zoom has, you know?
You look like a little conquistador, like someone.
Ole. Oh, oh, I say. I don't know how to do that very well.
Was that Spanish or French? What was that?
That was not me. But then again, wait a minute. Maybe I should have a little Rosie give me some flowers.
My little baby.
Yeah, I would say I'm in a silly mood. Perfect.
Good.
I feel a little silly, but I also feel a little it's been, I have to say, I've been feeling anxious over the last few weeks even, but and it's not just me. I
Hmm.
think it's a lot of people, but we're not talking about anxiety today. But I will say that the weather, if you will, inside of me has been a little bit cloudy, a little bit tornadic at times. And but in this moment, I feel peaceful and calm. The sun is out here. And aren't these great? Oh yeah, that's you. You're definitely the alien from another planet.
This is
Oh,
Mike from Monsters Inc.
yeah, same difference. It's you.
Mike Wazowski. Okay. For those of you listening, we're playing with our video filters. Okay.
Exactly. And why not? We want to give you a little excitement, a little something to laugh with us as we take on the serious topic of mental health and mindset. And it is serious business. I mean, I always say, take yourself, your practice seriously, but not yourself. So the
Fair.
practice of whatever we choose to do should be done with tending and awareness and intention. And especially when we're dealing with mental health and mindset. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for the listeners out there, we are also setting the stage for a mini series that we're going to kick off with our next couple of episodes on parenting and children. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll jump in. So, you know, Tatiana, why is healing important, and what is it?
Healing is a process for me. It's important to me to, and especially like, with clients, to stress like a place of it being in a process. Healing is a process. To say that we are healed sounds almost like we are striving for perfection, and that seems pretty unattainable most of the time. So when we can say, oh, we're healing, it's a constant journey because we're always going to be healing from something.
I agree. I'm going to be number one on that one. I totally
Ding, ding,
agree with
ding.
it. As we say in our spiritual practices, we take our tingshaws and we go, ding. That means, aha, or you got it. Absolutely agree with you. And I know from my own experience that healing is a process, and that, I can get caught up in the perfection idea of, like, and especially in a lot of the work that I do with individuals or teams, that where it's like, oh, we got it. We've pushed through that edge, or
Mm-hmm.
we dealt with that issue. And now I feel good about that issue. So I'll never be triggered again by it.
Good luck.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So healing is a process. It's a journey, just like life. I mean, we're
Right.
never going to get to the end till we leave this physical world. So might as
Right.
well sit back and enjoy it. I say
As
enjoy
much as we
it.
can.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because some days are shitty. I mean, that's just the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line, and there's no
Mm-hmm.
way around it. And
Right.
and that's where you have your tools, and you have therapists, and you have coaches, and you have your support system, which is super, super important.
Mm-hmm. I really like talking about, so when we're talking about mental health and mindset, like talking about lapses and relapses. And you usually use it when you're talking about substances, but it is relevant to mental health and mindset overall, because some days are you're going to have a lapse in judgment. You're going to have a lapse in faulty thinking. You're going to go back to some old patterns. But when you're able to use your tools and get yourself out of it and just say, you know what, that was just a bad moment or a really bad day. And tomorrow's a new one and I can start over and I've got these tools. I have this support system. It's just a lapse.
Yeah.
That's all it is. A relapse is different where it's like, okay, now I'm choosing not to use my tools. I'm choosing to go backwards and having to start this process over. And I think people can find some comfort in that because, like, I've had clients that are like, oh man, I messed up. I had a thing the other night and it really spurred on my anxiety. And then, it was just bad. But then I used my tools and it kind of helped. It just took a while. And I feel like I botched my progress. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's a lapse. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You're doing great. Just keep doing it because you have to make it a habit.
Yeah. I love it. You're absolutely right. And that is beautiful for leading into the difference between mental health and mindset. And there is a slight distinction, even though mental health works with mindset and coaching works with mindset. So
Mm-hmm.
what is the difference of mental health? How would you, I guess, define mental health?
It's kind of, I guess, in its most basic terms, the way I would define it is your brain processes and thoughts and feelings and behaviors that go along with those processes. It's kind of difficult because for me, because it's all encompassing of everything we do, right? So even when you are working on something physically, it's still going to affect you emotionally and mentally. So,
Yeah.
your mental health, it's, I'm not doing a very good job at defining this, but it's like an all-encompassing term for me of getting things together in a way that works for you, in a way that fuels your success. And that just, it looks different for everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I complement that with the mindset piece is also the mindset drives our behaviors. And what we're pointing to is mental, mind. It's all the combination, like you're describing, of the thought processes that drive our emotions or drive our behaviors. And I often will reference the bodies that we
Mm-hmm.
have. We have the spiritual body, which is the soul. We have the mental, emotional bodies, and then we have the physical. And we know that if we're making changes to any level of these bodies, it's going to affect the others. So if we're,
Mm-hmm.
you think about in the New Age movement, it was all the spiritual, focus. And even before that, in the religious movement and all that, it was, everything was on the spiritual level. And then it was
Right.
like, well, if you're this particular spiritual path, then you should behave this certain way. And now what we have focused on, and this is the gift of COVID, in my opinion, is that it turned a lot of focus onto the mental health. We neglected
Mm-hmm.
the mental piece of things. And I believe that the mind is like a muscle. It needs to be trained just like our physical body, just like our spiritual body. And that's where we have so many spiritual practices and we have physical practices that we do,
Mm-hmm.
yoga, gym, whatever, but we haven't focused until recently on mental health and mindset.
Right.
And
Right.
the emphasis now is it's not as taboo as it once was, but it did have a lot of stigma in the past.
Oh, sure. And it still does.
Like what?
It still does. I mean, people, if you get attached to a diagnosis, has a stigma. Oh, okay, anxiety and depression. While those are more common, people when they get labeled with depression, they're like, oh man, I'm like a useless failure.
Mm.
Someone who gets labeled with, I don't know, like a personality disorder, let's say borderline, which from my understanding is based in trauma. It's rooted in trauma, right? But attaching yourself to that diagnosis also provides the stigma for yourself and how you think others see you because of that. And certain populations are more prone to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, growing up, I would think about somebody who had mental health issues as being
Crazy.
yeah, crazy,
Mm-hmm.
which is a term you don't use, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're the outcasts, they're the outliers, or the people you pity but you avoid at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, right?
Right.
Um, and now, I mean, what you're describing too is that there's labels that
Mm-hmm.
we associate, and it's still somewhat taboo. But now there's a lot of people that are starting to embrace it. And for me, I find that once you're diagnosed and you can work with it, better the devil you know, it loses its power, you know, and then you have support and that sort of thing. So
Right. I'm with you. I mean, when we're talking about, diagnosis, it helps with informing treatment plans, right? So here's a course of action on how to hopefully alleviate your symptoms or manage them better,
right,
give you goals to work toward.
right.
Um, but back to, you said the mental health and stigma, like I think people that have a physical disease are treated better than people, or at least have been in the past, treated better than people with a mental illness or mental disease, mental disorder, because like, oh my, you're crazy. I can't associate with you. But if you have cancer or um, you've had a heart attack, like I can empathize and that's okay.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
Why is that, I wonder? I mean, I'm speculating a little bit, but I think a lot of it has to do with um, society norms. You know, people didn't understand it. People are afraid of the things we don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think too, it's like you can't see mental health. You can see a physical disorder or disease at times. You can see how it's physically affecting somebody if somebody gets really sick. Oh
Right.
man, you're really sick. I can empathize with that because I can see it. But if someone's like, oh, I'm suffering from depression, I'm in a depressive episode right now. Okay, I just have to take your word for it.
Right.
Right. If someone says, oh man, I'm so sore from the gym, I'm like, huh, I can't see that.
Right.
I don't know what that's like for you to feel your soreness. I know it's like for me to be sore, but not to feel your soreness. I can't see you being sore, you know?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can see someone with a broken leg.
Hmm. Yep. Good point. And you can see the effects that maybe that depression has if they withdraw or they can't get out of bed or function or whatever. But how many of us are walking around with undiagnosed things
Mm-hmm.
that, and we don't have the tools and nobody ever knows? I mean, we hear it all over the news with people who are committing crimes or suicide or whatever, is that people are going, but they were so put together. We never saw the signs.
Right. You're not looking for them.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just those people are suffering in silence, or they don't know, or they've been dismissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is mental health and therapy so important?
Mm. Um, so I've been following a page, Decolonizing Therapy, and this woman has been in practice for, I want to say it's like 25 years. Um, and she essentially is positing that current therapy has taken from ancient cultures, in a sense, from practices that already have a strong standing, like shamans or medicine men, healers in that sense, right? And now we've westernized it and we've whitewashed it.
Mm.
And can you repeat your question? Because I lost it for a second.
Yeah, perfect. No, I was saying, why is mental health and therapy so important?
Okay, that was my point. So it, when she says that when everyone is saying, oh, you need therapy, everyone needs therapy, there's a bigger problem. Our systems are the problem. And I would have to agree with that, because if everyone needs therapy, then We need to take a look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is childhood trauma. It's poverty. It's food insecurity. It's being incarcerated for crimes you didn't commit, or being incarcerated for crimes you did commit while not being rehabilitated. Yeah. It's the money grubbing capitalist source that we have for this country, where it's like, oh, let's widen this wealth gap and make sure no one can get ahead in life. Certain racial groups are disparaged more than others. And then now we have what COVID brought on, a lot of Asian hate and Asian crime. It's it's all of these systems that we have in place that aren't working for everybody. And now there's a rise in mental health issues.
Right. That we can't ignore.
No.
Which is, again, the gift, if you will, in something so tragic as a pandemic that has destroyed many lives and harmed many people. There are good things that have come out of it. And I'm going to put on my astrologer hat for a second and just point out that what you're talking about is systemic. And we've had Pluto in Capricorn, which has been busting through the institutions and the systems of government, or the systems of concrete old ways of traditional ways of doing things. And when Pluto moves into Aquarius in a month, in March, we're going to have an opportunity to have a little taste, and we've already had little tasters here, but of how it's going to start transforming. Pluto's the planet of transformation and power, and brings up it's the rotor-rooter that brings up all the shit that we need to look at and say, hey, better the devil you know, you better face it and start dancing, But anyways, when it moves into Aquarius, we're going to start looking at it from systemic level, because Aquarius works with systems, and it wants to innovate them, and it wants to have these processes in place. It's technology and science based in that energy of Aquarian. And so we're going to be looking at, we can look at the world right now of how so much technology and science backed and facts are coming to light that support mental health, and that there are systems here that need to be revamped. So, yeah.
Lots of things need to be revamped. Globally, but we'll see what happens.
Well, you know what? It's like moving a battleship. It's going to take a lot longer to turn a battleship around than it is a little tugboat,
Right.
So, but I think that's probably the hardest part. I'd run off on a tangent for a second, but I think that's the hardest part, is how do people not get discouraged when they don't see the change that they know needs to happen?
With systems or with themselves?
Systems. And it's a big topic. I know.
I don't think I'm as well versed about systems to speak on it, but not getting discouraged. Doing what you can do, what's in your power to control. And if that's, being on the ground floor, like grassroots and politics, advocating for maybe just your neighborhood, right, in your own backyard, and making those changes, voting at local elections, like little things like that, I think go a long way. I think when we look at the bigger scale, we do feel hopeless, because it's like, how is my one little voice going to affect anything in the midst of millions of people? Well, maybe you're right. However, there are things you can do at a closer level that might bring you a little more comfort and ease in your daily living.
And that ties it beautifully back into the mental health mindset, because we can only change ourselves. We can affect or influence the environment and others, but we cannot physically control somebody else. So if we are working on ourselves and our growth mindset, our locus of control, whatever, if we're diagnosed with a particular thing that we need to work on with our mental health, if we're doing that, then our behaviors change, and we can affect the world around us.
Right.
And I'll say this, we're talking about the mental health piece, and I'll give a little bit of a definition around the mindset, which is very similar. And that is that our mindset, what we believe, affects our behaviors, affects our habits. And it's the patterns of thinking is a mindset. And so when we're working with mental health or mindset, and as Tatiana mentioned, she has programs that she puts together once she's able to diagnose her clients. When I'm working with my clients, then I listen really deeply for these belief systems or these patterns of thought that keep perpetuating over and over again. They say they want to change something, and I have to challenge that. And in order to do that, it's to push outside of the comfort zone. It's to our mindset is based off of the view and the interpretation of the world around us and what's happening inside of us. And so, like you're pointing to, if there's trauma, if there's anything that has influenced us in some way, and we're working through something, we're going to interpret that through the filter of whatever I've experienced, the filter of my own experience. And so working with a therapist or a coach allows you to be able to change your perspective. And I often say we used to be in the time of I'll believe it, then I'll see it. Well, now we're in a time of I'll believe it, then I'll see it. So we've already shifted some of that mindset, but it's hard when we're stuck in these perpetuating patterns. And if you don't have the support and reflective person to bounce that off of, or to show you another perspective, it's easy to stay stuck.
Well, I think that's the benefit of having a therapist too, is having someone who is objective as much as they can be of your experience. They care about you, they're for you, but they're not as involved and biased as a family member or a close friend, right? Yeah. They have their own subjective experiences, lived experiences, and education that they're working out of, right? And so you have to remember that when you're looking for a therapist, right? You have to vibe with them, but they are for you. You come with whatever you want to work on, and they're going to help you through it. And if they can't, and they're a good therapist, they will refer you to someone who can.
Right.
Not one person. Right. Not one person has all the knowledge or the tools.
That's right. That's why I highly encourage people to work with various coaches and therapists, and to change up. I mean, it's not a forever, in the world mindset or partnership, and also I think one thing you pointed out that's I want to drive home is that we are the neutral party. We're not your closest friends or family, because how many times do you share a story? Do we share stories with each other and we're on each other's side, right? So I can't be neutral. I know that some of the experiences that you and Talbot have had over the last couple of years, I mean, I could not be neutral. And I totally told you that. So it was good for you to have a third party, and same for me,
So, oh man, if I didn't have my therapist, I'm so grateful for her. She's great.
I have a wonderful fellow coach, Scott, who he and I bounce off coaching, fairly regularly. And I don't think I could survive without having that reflective either, because I can't get out of my own way.
Right.
Why are so many people afraid of being in therapy or having a coach? What do you think?
I think sometimes it comes down to finances. I think it comes down to stigma still. Depending on your culture, some cultures are very much, we don't talk about things outside of the family. That's disrespectful. Some cultures are, they have a history with the medical field that, let's take African American Black people, for example. Like, there's a history within the medical field where they have been completely disregarded.
Yeah.
And why should they trust anybody?
Right.
When there's a timeline of it. It's in history books.
Yeah.
So I think it's on the rise, and I'm grateful for that, because it is important. Like, if I didn't have the therapist I had when I was 12, I don't know how I would have turned out. And I don't even remember anything I fucking said to her. I would just leave. Oh, she was awesome, Michelle. I would just leave, and she's like, oh, she was a little chatterbox today. I'm like, that's cool. This is okay. But I had someone to listen to me in a time where I felt very uncontrollable. The situation, was out of my control. And there was someone there just to hear me, whatever I said, and just sit there and listen to me.
And what Tatiana is pointing out is the divorce between her dad and I.
Right. And then getting back into it, and especially during my counseling program, having someone there to help me with my blind spots, help me work through the things that I hadn't still worked through, that I knew I would need to, especially with clients. And like when countertransference shows up, that's not the time to work through it. That is the time to consult your supervisor and your therapist and say, oh, whoopsie, I got triggered. Now I got to work on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of us, I think I'm sorry, I cut you off,
please.
but I think some of us have a deeper thirst for growth and knowledge than others, which is why some people, they're like, I'm fine and I'm happy this way. And that's cool. Mm-hmm. That's good for you. You're going to attract people that are the same. They're happy with how they are, with how they act, how they talk to people, how they move in the world. That's awesome. Do your thing. It's not for everybody. Some people, they're like, you know what? I have this blind spot. I have this issue. I have this what feels like an ailment that I want to get better. I want to learn more about myself. I want to be a better version of me.
Yeah. Agreed. That's one thing that I say over and over again, especially when I'm meeting a new client, is that one of the things that I want to do is help you become more self-aware, because the more self-aware you are, the better you can lead, the better you can make conscious decisions. Because how many people are walking around this world unconscious, not recognizing how their behavior, the words they say, the way they say them is affecting everything around. And, if again, it's my belief system, but if I can show up and leave a situation, a person, a place better than when I found it, I've done my job. But I can't do that if I'm not self-aware.
Right.
So, and when I work with the mindset piece, I'm looking at pushing people. I always say, I'll push you to your edge, but I won't let you fall over. But getting out of that comfort zone, encouraging that comfort zone. I also provide a perspective of hope, not false hope, but this perspective of sometimes we get so fixed in this one little moment and we can't see the bigger picture. And then we get overwhelmed and the anxiety kicks in and all of that sort of thing. So really helping with that perspective shift. And then, praising wisely. That's another thing to do with mindset shifting, is that, not everybody gets a gold star just for showing up at class. I'm sorry, right. That doesn't work. But if I can praise wisely of acknowledging, for me, it's more about acknowledging, look at what you are doing and let's celebrate that. And you should be proud. You taught me that term, which I really like. I like that better than I'm so proud of you. And encouraging that agile thinking, allowing others, to think differently and posing different questions to them. And that's part of what the main thing I do as a coach is I'm asking, hopefully, really good questions to unlock that inner wisdom inside of the individual, because I can't pretend to know what's best for them. They know what's best for them. So I might say things like, what beliefs or ideas are limiting you? Or why is this really important for achieving your goal? What might be standing in the way, or what do you feel is holding you back? Things like that. And then we just kind of workshop through that.
Right. So when we're talking about mindset, in our notes, you had put growth mindset, and Carol Dweck has an awesome, it's like 10-minute TED talk on growth mindset. And essentially there was a study done with I want to say it was third graders who were given math problems for eighth graders. Right. So there's really no way that they're going to be able to get it done.
Right.
Right. But they all got their test scores back. And some of them said, oh man, I'm a failure. I can't do this. Pause. First off, you're not supposed to. But the second group said, oh man, well, I'll get it one day. I'm just not there yet. And she talks about the power of yet, right? That growth mindset. I'm not there yet, but I will be one day. I'm in third grade. There's no way I should be answering an eighth grade math problem right now, but I'll learn. I'll get there. I'll get better. Look at babies. They're bad at everything they do, right? They can't walk well. They can't talk well. They can't, climb and ask for things. They can't use their words, but they keep doing it. They keep trying. They have that power of yet, that growth mindset. Oh, you know what? Mom and dad, they held me by my arms and helped me walk my little feet. Oh, that feels really good. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. And one day they walk. They keep hearing sounds. And one day they talk.
So true. What a great point. And I think it's, important for us. And I will start wrapping up this episode, because I think it's a really good point for us to segue into our next ones, which will start with parenting and children. But such a good point about us giving ourselves a lot of grace and a lot of space, and sometimes having that third party to do that with us is so good, because we can't always expect our family members or our friends to prop us up that way. Or they may try and prop us up, but it might be more like sugarcoating or false hope kind of thing, to make us feel better.
Right. I'm gonna backtrack on something I said for a second. Babies are not bad at everything. They're great at being babies. They're bad at what adults who have already learned things classify as good.
Yes.
Like walking and talking. So
right. Good clarification.
Yeah.
I knew that's what you meant. It's good to clarify that. So you've mentioned a couple of resources. Are there any other resources that you would recommend for people if they want to explore a therapist, how to find a good therapist or mental health practitioner?
Psychology Today is always a great resource. You can look by therapist, you can look by insurance type, you can look by if you want teletherapy or in person or a hybrid. Obviously, you can search by your area and then vet them out that way. I know Megan Thee Stallion has put together a host of resources for mental health. Those are also really great. If someone is in school, like let's say college, usually there's a school counseling. I think for any school, really, like middle school, high school too, like there's school counseling. And those can help at least during school. And of course, if more assistance is needed, the school counselor can provide resources. Some programs for work have employee assistance programs where they will provide counseling depending on the issue, especially if it's impeding work. So if you don't know where to start, like find someone you trust that you can explore it with. Not all of us feel comfortable talking with a teacher or talking with our boss. Like, hey, I think I'm struggling with something, right? That stigma comes back in. How are they going to react? Am I going to be viewed differently? Am I penalized for asking? Where for me and you as well, like, congratulations for asking for help. That's a strength. That's your first step, right? But really reach out to anybody that you find supportive. Google's awesome, but start exploring your options. It's really nice to have someone that wants to help you feel better.
Yeah. And don't get discouraged, if you don't find the right one the first time. Try out a couple, get second opinions, or, as you would with a doctor, get a second, go to 2 different therapists or 3 different ones and see how you feel. Same thing. I always say that with coaching as well. The first session, we're just getting to know each other, establishing a baseline, seeing if this is a good fit.
Right.
Doesn't mean that I'm going to be offended if you don't choose me. What I want and what I care most about is your support and whatever you need. And, and one other thing I will say too. So for coaching, you can go to the International Coaching Federation and find coaches there, which is where I was certified. Also Radiance Partners, which I'm part of as well. And then, of course, you can go to Google and LinkedIn and some of those places, but definitely I'll say this for me, from a recovering, not asking for helpaholic, a recovering independent, asking for help was the hardest thing for me to do. And now it has become a practice of love, of self-love for myself, because I can't sit here and say we're all perfectly imperfect humans and not say that I need help too, because I'm imperfect and there are things inside of me that need to shift and change. And, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? So I know I need help to change some things because I clearly couldn't do it myself. So I just say, please, whatever anyone is going through, you're not alone.
No, please ask. Please call a hotline. Please ask your doctor. If you're seeing someone regularly, they can refer you. They can provide you with medication if you're up for medication. Like, talk to someone you trust. You are not a burden to the right people.
That's right. And there's no subject that's off limits.
Correct.
Because someone is going through it in some way, shape, or form.
Correct. And if you are that person that someone's coming to and you don't know what to do, help them find someone to talk to. that can help them.
Yeah. Yeah. We're in this thing together. So
big time.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you for just being part of this episode. And you can find me at jamiedon.com, at Center for Healing Services. Center Healing Services. Oh my God. I
You
totally
forgot your own
blanked.
place.
Well, so much
Well,
for a formal exit. Anyways, go to jamiedon.com. Find me
there you go. Perfect.
And
You
we're
can
gonna-
find me you can find me on Psychology Today. Just type in Tatiana Mazel and I'll come up. I'm currently at Pathways Family and Community Services. But again, if we aren't the right fit for you, at least reach out so we can provide you with referrals.
That's right. Please get whatever it takes. Know that help is beautiful.
Absolutely.
And all of us are here together.